This happened years ago, but it's still one of my favorite memories because I can't stand the kind of people who treat retail workers like trash. And I've made it my personal hobby to humiliate them when they deserve it. I spent years working in retail before I switched careers. I went from dealing with customers who would ask for products based solely on what the actor in the commercial was wearing to teaching kids. And honestly, this story is one of the reasons I'm convinced children are smarter than a lot of adults. Back then, I worked as a trainer for a major mobile phone company. My job was to visit different phone stores, run customer events, and teach the staff how to use and sell new products. So I was always dressed sharp. Button-up shirt, slacks, dress shoes. The most casual I ever got was a polo. I needed to look professional. Unfortunately, my professional look came with the perfect bait for entitled idiots. A shiny silver name badge. I can't even count how many times people assumed I worked wherever I happened to be standing. This particular night, I'd just finished work and stopped by a supermarket to grab groceries for a couple days. I still had my jacket on, logo on the chest, badge on, basically a giant target for any self-important lunatic looking for someone to bully. My cart had frozen meals my wife loved, snacks for my son, dog food, and some random household stuff. I was standing in the spices aisle, staring at the shelves and mentally checking what I still needed for chili, when I heard the faintest noise behind me, like someone clearing their throat. I scooted closer to the shelf, so I wasn't blocking the aisle. No reason to be rude, right? A second passed, then another, and my retail spider sense started screaming in my skull. Because then I heard it. That sound every retail worker recognizes, no matter how far away they are. Excuse me. I turned around and saw a woman who looked like she was around 40, but dressed like she was desperately auditioning to be mistaken for her own daughter. Leggings, fuzzy boots, a blouse unbuttoned in all the strategic places. Giant sunglasses that looked like they could power her hairstyle if she stood in direct sunlight. She stood there like she owned the aisle. For one brief moment, I prayed she'd realize her mistake and just walk past me to grab oregano. Nope, because in her mind, I was no longer a customer. I was now her employee, and she was furious at my service. She snapped, "No, I need you to help me find this product." I blinked. "Sorry?" She huffed like I was slow. "The product. I need the name, whatever it's called. Just show me where it is." Now, I'm naturally sarcastic. My wife jokes that I get paid to politely tell people to go to hell, and somehow they thank me afterward. But that only works on normal people. This woman, not normal. Also, the employees in this supermarket wore khakis and red shirts. I was wearing a blue dress shirt, slacks, and a jacket with a completely different company logo. Nothing about me matched their uniform. So I smiled politely and said, the simple, obvious truth. "Ma'am, I don't work here." Her eyes narrowed, darkened, like a shark spotting something bleeding. And that's when the game began. "Yes, you do," she snapped. "You're in uniform. Stop lying and do your damn job." In my head, a bell rang, loud and clear. "Oh, okay." I put on my sweetest customer service smile, the one that says I would like to launch you into the sun, but I'm going to do this professionally. And I said, "How can I help you, ma'am?" She visibly twitched at the word ma'am. She didn't like it. Good. I wasn't about to let her think she was in control here. She barked, "I need the name of a product, now. Take me to it." I nodded and started pushing my cart down the aisle. She didn't like that I had a cart, like I was supposed to teleport her item into her hands. But she followed, muttering under her breath. I took my time. I turned down one aisle, then another, then another. After a few aisles, she started making these annoyed little snorting noises like an angry animal trying to pretend it was a person. "Why is it so far?" she complained. Not directly to me, but loud enough for me to hear. "Why do I have to walk this much?" I kept going, past seasonal items, past candy, past luggage and travel accessories. She trailed behind me like a storm cloud in fuzzy boots, grumbling so hard I couldn't even catch every word. It was a blur of insults, either about my parents, my intelligence, or the tragic life choices that led her to this moment. Probably all of the above. Finally, we reached the book section. I turned my cart right into it. That's when she snapped for real. "Where the hell are you going?" she shouted. "Are you stupid? If you can't find it, I want your manager. Right now!" Her voice carried. People started looking over from electronics. A few heads popped up from the aisles nearby. Perfect. Audience acquired. I stopped in front of the children's books and grabbed a thin little booklet. One of those alphabet primers for toddlers. Bright cover, big letters, cartoon characters smiling next to the ABCs. Exactly what I needed. I walked back to her, held it out, didn't say a word, just presented it like it was the most helpful thing in the world. She snatched it, looked at the cover, looked back at me, and her face twisted in disgust. "What the hell is this?" she hissed. "Are you an idiot? Where's your manager? You're disgusting." Her yelling drew two actual employees. One had a radio and clearly started calling for a manager. Another rushed over with that familiar look retail workers get. The pure terror of realizing someone is about to go nuclear in public. I smiled warmly, nodded toward the book in her hands, and in my best customer service voice said, "Honestly, ma'am, since you can't tell the difference between a customer and an employee, I figured reading might be a struggle too. This should help." For a split second, there was pure silence. Her brain stopped, like a hamster just fell off the wheel. The employee who just arrived didn't hear what I said. He only saw me smiling politely, while this woman stood there with her mouth open. Then he stepped in, still professional, still calm. "Hello, how can I help you today?" The woman snapped back to life like a possessed demon. She launched the book at me and started screaming. I dodged the book easily. She went even louder. "How dare you talk to me like that? I want a manager right now. He needs to be fired." And the wild part? She still hadn't figured out I didn't work there. She just assumed I was some rude employee who deserved punishment. She kept ranting, swearing, spitting out half-formed insults like she was short-circuiting. The employee tried to calm her down, but she was in full meltdown mode. Her face was so red I genuinely thought smoke might come out of her ears. Somewhere on that radio, I swear someone was praying for either a manager or a priest. I stepped back out of reach of her arms and casually pulled out my phone. I texted my wife, "Running late. You're getting a great story tonight." She replied instantly, "What did you do now?" I love that woman. When the manager finally showed up, he pulled the woman aside and tried to de-escalate. The employee standing near me leaned over and asked quietly, "What happened?" I made my most innocent face and said, "I mean, look at her hair. This was inevitable. Big mistake." He snorted, then tried to choke it back, but she heard even that tiny laugh, and it set her off again. She pivoted from screaming to complaining at maximum volume, then right back into screaming. A few minutes later, the manager came over to me and started asking questions she clearly made up on the spot. "Did you call her a profanity? Did you throw a book at her? Were you following her?" Just nonsense. The kind of stuff people invent when they have a vague relationship with reality. So I told him calmly exactly what happened. I was shopping, she demanded I show her where a product was, and she refused to believe I didn't work there. He looked at what I was wearing, and I watched a small piece of his soul leave his body. He did that slow retail manager stare, the one that says, "Humanity is a mistake, and I can't believe this is my job." Then his eyes flicked to the alphabet book on the floor, and I gave him the truth, with zero drama. Well, since she can't tell a customer from an employee, I thought maybe reading was difficult too. So I offered her a beginner's alphabet book. If she could read, a lot of her problems would solve themselves. The employee next to me absolutely lost it. Full body, wheezing laughter. He bent over, stumbling backward like he was going to collapse, and fled toward the back room still laughing. Even after he disappeared, we could still hear him. The manager, clearly a seasoned veteran of retail warfare, made a noise that was almost a laugh, like a grumpy cough. But the way his face twitched told me everything. He thought it was funny, too. The woman noticed people laughing and, to her credit, figured out they were laughing at her. She marched back toward us, jabbing a cheap acrylic nail in my direction like it was a weapon. The manager raised his hand and said firmly, "Ma'am, you need to stop harassing other customers and lower your voice." That did it. She started sputtering, swearing, threatening. Then, at the peak of her tantrum, she swung her arm across the shelf and knocked a bunch of books and items onto the floor like a child having a meltdown. And that was the moment I knew. She wasn't being asked to leave. She was being removed. The manager called for help. 2 employees from another department came over, 2 women who looked like they'd done this before, and they grabbed her and started escorting her toward the front. She fought the whole way, still screaming, still insisting she knew important people, still demanding that I'd be fired from a job I didn't have. The employee who'd run off laughing came back, still grinning, and walked with me back toward the groceries so I could finish shopping. He told me she was being trespassed and wouldn't be allowed back in the store. His mood was incredible until he remembered someone would have to clean up the mess she made. We laughed a little more about how unbelievably stupid the whole thing was. Then I checked out and headed toward the exit. As I was leaving, 2 police officers walked in, looking annoyed like they'd been called away from something better. I walked to my car smiling. And the moral of the story is simple. Don't dump your issues on random people. Don't assume strangers exist to serve you. And don't treat retail workers like trash. Because someday you'll pick the wrong employee, and you'll get handed a children's alphabet book in front of an audience.
That's where the story ends. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and see you next time.